Good morning. Welcome to the Tulip Airway channel. Today we're going to learn about how doctors think. So we're going to discuss how highly trained, highly educated, highly intelligent people make life defining decisions for other people, right? So if that's of interest to you, please like and subscribe and you get notified for the other 5 videos in this series. So every year, hundreds of new medical devices come onto the market, but about 90% of them fail and disappear. But, you know, why does that happen? Why do only a few medical devices end up making a difference? If better technology exists, you'd expect doctors to just start using it, wouldn't you? But they don't. They tend to stick to older tools. But the answer to that paradox is it's not data. It's not, how well did the device perform in clinical trials. It's actually about doctor psychology. So if we reframe the problem, I mean, you think that if new technology works, that I would use it, but medicine doesn't work that way. And the reason is quite simple. Doctors are responsible for patient safety. They work under extreme pressure, and more importantly, they carry the consequences if something goes wrong, if something fails. Now, the point of that is that means legal, as well as, the ethical and as well as the effects on family of the patient. I mean, it is endless. So when a clinician evaluates a new device, you know, they're not just asking whether it works, because it probably does, otherwise it wouldn't be here. They're asking, something far more intimate, far more personal, a responsibility. Can I trust this when it absolutely matters, right? This trust is what this is about. So if you're interested in the deep psychology behind this kind of, medical decision making, then basically I've written about it in my book, Life and Death Decisions, because as a doctor, as a medical device inventor, I've watched this happen repeatedly. And this whole philosophy is at the core of the Tulip Airway sales strategy, right? So in this series, we're going to look at a number of things in the other videos. Why do doctors trust some devices and, not others? How do doctors decide to adopt the new technology that they do adopt? And, all of this is in, as I said, Life and Death Decisions, and that's available. And the other videos will go on to explain the hidden psychology of why the medical, how a doctor adopts medical technology. So in the series as a total, we're going to look at, why doctors trust some devices and not others. What is medical adoption about? What do we mean by clinical trust? And, why some amazing devices just fail. So, adopting a new technology, it's not a purely rational decision. It's not data driven as such. Maybe it should be, but there's more to it, isn't it? There's workflow, there's ease of use, there's how easily can other people be trained in it. So the decision-making process from a doctor's perspective, right? It's all about autonomy. They make the decision. It's all about their experience. What are other people doing? And it's all about, can I justify my personal decision? So, as a doctor, I can tell you straight, I don't like feeling pressured. You're not going to change my practice by pressuring me. I'll probably in fact do the exact opposite, because a game for me is, not looking at adverts, leaving the room, stuff like this. I don't want to be influenced. I'll decide for myself, right? So clinicians tend to be like me. They prefer to discover the value themselves. But the point is, and this is the critical insight, when a doctor decides something for themselves, that decision is significantly more durable because they made it. So, so what is it that changes the medical practice? We found that demonstration of a tulip in a mannequin without speaking is significantly more persuasive than anything else, right? And that's because, and this is where this book came from, this observation, doing it, selling it, and asking people to use it, watching their responses, and quite frankly, me shutting up and letting them use tulip in a mannequin. It just does everything for you. Tulip sells itself. The decision is made by the user. So this is, what the core insight came from, is the selling of Tulip. And really, it's a case of just don't speak. All right. They're going to need some data evidence. Is it safe? Regurgitation. Is it ease of use? Yes, you can do it, like this. You can do it like that. You can use it here. You can use it there. But that's it. All right. Just give them like 10 facts. Shut up. Let them use the device. You decide, sir. Okay, that's what's going to happen. Stop with the persuasion. All right, so seeing a device work in real clinical conditions is significantly more persuasive than any other single experience. All right, and that's because the clinician makes their own judgment, and when they've made that decision, it does tend to stick. So the big psychology insight is that in medicine, doctors are strongly averse to negative outcomes. So loss aversion is the strongest influence in clinical decision making. So what they will do is they will basically value the device, project potential negative outcomes, and they will do that more than they'll project the potential benefits. Okay, so even when the device and the evidence and statistics and studies show a significant improvement, that fear of failure, of risk, of harm always dominates. That means, doctors and clinicians and people like that are predisposed to favor existing tools. They know they will work under those situations unless the new device does something dramatic and completely reduces risk, which a Tulip does do. Okay, that is described, just so you've got some foundation for this. This is a kind of a backup for my own theory, is that something very similar is described by Peter Wacker in prospect theory. Okay, so clinicians often resist new technology, not because they don't like anything new, but because the risk of harm it always outweighs the potential benefits in their mind. Decisions. Previously, it was a psychology a psychology insight. Now it's a sales and adoption insight. But this, you knew this, all right? You know that basically when your peers use something, that accelerates adoption and use. But that's not specifically the angle here. It's more of a reframe that basically medical devices spread through social networks. Okay, that's the reframe. You are going to stimulate a social network, use one person in a department, spreads through rumor, through discussion, coffee room. This is where it happens. So it's not just like other people are using it, it's discussion, active, recommendations. Yes, it can do this. No, it can't. Word of mouth. It's more. Now, so again, that osmosis-like nature of knowledge. I was going to say it's infective, but it isn't. It's slower. It is like osmosis. This is described in The Diffusion of Innovations by Everett Rogers. Now, so Tulip isn't going to be spread through marketing. All right, I'm not going to be like, my people aren't going to turn up and start persuading you. They'll give you a Tulip, explain the benefits, what cautions. There aren't many with a Tulip, and then basically people start using it successfully. That's what changes things. So the question that people should really be asking is not how do we persuade doctors, because they don't get persuaded, is how do clinicians come to trust something that's new? So that understanding is critical if we want, the Tulip or new medical technologies to actually reach our patients. Okay, and this is the core of the Tulip Airway philosophy. Hence, I wrote the book. Now, so the summary: you can't persuade a doctor. All right, they persuade themselves. They sell to themselves. Okay, that's the core idea. And that forms a foundation of life and death decisions. Right? It's available on Amazon. Yeah, so in the next video of the series of 6, in video number 22, we'll discuss why most medical innovations fail, even when they're technologically advanced, even when they work. Release shortly.